Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here at Just Shy of You Ministries with Casa de Israel Yarah. I thank you again for being there. It's another episode here with Torah portion Beshalach. And so we are going to continue. Well, we have been talking about Pharaoh and focusing on Pharaoh's heart and how Adonai is using these natural phenomena to confront Pharaoh and the ideology that not only Pharaoh, but the ideology that Pharaoh has inherited from his past generations, and how they have created an ideology that basically has put nature into different gods and beings. And we understood last week that Pharaoh, out of all the gods that were judged, two of them obviously predominantly controlled the appearance of Pharaoh, which was Ra and Ma'at. And so based on these concepts, mainly Ma'at, which was the goddess of order and justice, to one extent, Adonai uses the concept of the hardening of the heart, where she would weigh the heart with her feather, and if the heart was heavy, then he would be cast into death, right? Or he would be eaten by the crocodile. And so this mythological concept that they had, and this idea of how the world works and how the afterlife was constructed, Adonai was challenging it. And so in a sense, when it talks about his hardening of the heart, it could be a judgmental or a judgment language based on the Egyptian culture. And also it describes the actions of Pharaoh towards Adonai, and how Adonai in peace asked through Moses for his people to be released. He refused many times. And in the case of God manifesting himself through Moses, Pharaoh becomes stubborn, and he puts his people in danger and his kingdom in chaos, and he brings chaos to his whole kingdom, which leads to the death of the firstborn of Egypt, his included. And so we understood what a man with a hardened heart, unwilling to listen to God, can cause. Okay, now something very interesting that I learned this week in the Egyptian culture is that when they created these images to represent their gods, they not only believed that they created these images to be worshipped, but they also had the idea that these natural phenomenons and these deities that they were attributing it to, they wanted to contain them in these images. And so they wanted to make sure that they can put these deities in these images, and they will be able to control these gods. And when you think of all these things that they had in their mind, the full manifestation of Adonai through Moses is a total challenge to the ideology. And now in this final judgment, in the Sea of Reeds, in the Red Sea, they are in front of this mountain. And so before we get to that, we're going to do a Torah blessing, and then we'll get to the reading, get some historical facts, beep, 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 and I'll let you be. I'll let you be free so you can read the Torah portion with your family and enjoy your Shabbat, okay? So let's do a Torah blessing. Baruch ata Adonai HaMevorah, Baruch Adonai HaMevorah le'olam ba'eh, Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu v'kol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato, Baruch ata Adonai noten hatorah. Bless Adonai who is blessed, bless Adonai who is blessed now forever. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has chosen us from among peoples, has given us the Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, who gives the Torah. Amen. So, like I said, this week's Torah portion is Beshalach, and I have some of my notes here. Beshalach is in Exodus 13, verse 17 through Exodus 17, verse 16. The Brit Hadashah portion is Revelation chapter 10, verses 1 through chapter 20, verse 6. And the Haftarah portion, or the prophet portion, is Judges chapter 4, verse 4 to Judges chapter 5, verse 31. I said that out of order. My apologies. So, like I said, Beshalach, this is when Pharaoh let the people go. And so we're going to get into the reading, and then we will start breaking this apart and seeing this final judgment. Okay? So, let's get to reading. So, this week's Torah portion starts off like this. Vayechi Beshalach Pharaoh את העם ולא נחם אלוהים דרך ארץ פלישתים כי קרוב הוא כי אמר אלוהים פן ינחם העם ויראות מלחמה ושבו מצרמה. And in English, it says the following. Now when Pharaoh had let the people go, God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, even though it was near, for God said, the people might change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. Hence, God led the people by the way of the wilderness to the Red Sea. And the sons of Israel went up in martial array from the land of Egypt. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had made the sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, God will surely take care of you, and you will carry my bones from here with you. Then they set out from Sukkot, camped in Etam on the edge of the wilderness. The Lord was going before them in the pillar of cloud by day to lead them on the way, and in the pillar of fire by night to give them light, that they might travel by day and by night. He did not take away the pillar of cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. Now, this pillar of fire and a pillar of cloud is understood to represent, to an extent, the presence of Adonai. And it's also interesting because there is ancient Near Eastern stories that the gods will send messengers, and there will be representation of clouds. This cloud was a representation of Adonai, and this was guiding them, protecting them in the wilderness. And it describes it as the malach, or the messenger of Adonai, to an extent. Okay, now we're going to continue because now Pharaoh is realizing what's going on. He's back to his senses, and his heart is becoming stubborn one more time. Okay, so let's get to it. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, tell the sons of Israel to turn back and camp before Pi Chachiroth, between Migdol and the sea. You shall camp in front of Baal Zephon, opposite by the sea. For Pharaoh will say to the sons of Israel, they are wandering aimlessly in the land. The wilderness has shut them in. Thus I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will chase after them. And I will be honored through Pharaoh and all his army. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. And they did. So, when the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his servants had change of heart towards the people. And they said, what is this we have done, that we have let the people of Israel go from serving us? So he made his chariots ready and took his people with him. He took 600 select chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all. He took 600. The Lord hardened his heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he chased after the sons of Israel as the sons of Israel were going out boldly. Then the Egyptians chased after them with horses and chariots of Pharaoh, his horsemen and his army, and they overtook the camping by sea, besides Pi Chachiroth, in front of Baal Zephon. As Pharaoh drew near, the sons of Israel looked, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they became very frightened. So the sons of Israel cried out to the Lord. Then they said to Moses, is it because there was no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you dealt with us in this way, bringing us out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we spoke to you in Egypt, saying, leave us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it will have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. But Moses said to the people, do not fear, stand by and see. The salvation of Adonai will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you will never see them again forever. The Lord will fight for you while you keep silent. And the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the sons of Israel to go forward. As for you, lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it. And the sons of Israel shall go through the midst of the sea and dry land. As for me, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, so that they will go in after them. And I will be honored through Pharaoh and all his army, through the chariot of his horsemen. Then the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, and I am honored through Pharaoh, through his chariot and his horsemen. Then the angel of God, who had been going before the camp of Israel, moved and went behind them. And the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them. So it came between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel. And there was cloud along with the darkness, yet it gave light at night. Thus the one did not come near to the other at night. Then Moses stretched his hand over the sea, and the Lord swept the sea back with a strong east wind all night and turned the sea into dry land so that the waters were divided. The sons of Israel went through the midst of the sea in the dry land, and the waters were like a wall to them in their right and in their left. The Egyptians took up pursuit, and all Pharaoh's horses and chariots and his horsemen went in after them into the midst of the sea. At the morning watch, the Lord looked down on the army of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire, and a cloud brought the army of the Egyptians into confusion. He caused their chariots and wheels to swerve and made them drive with difficulty. So the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from Israel, for the Lord is fighting for them against the Egyptians." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, so that the waters may come back over the Egyptians, over their chariots and over their horsemen." So Moses stretched out his hands over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal state at daybreak, while the Egyptians were fleeing right into it. Then the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen, and even Pharaoh's entire army that had gone into the sea after them. Not even one of them remained, but the sons of Israel walked on dry land through the midst of the sea, and the waters were like a wall to them on their right and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. When Israel saw the great power which the Lord had used against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and his servant Moses. So now is when they believed. But it's very interesting because the song that they sing now, and we're going to focus on the first couple of verses because it's very important that we get a perspective that Adonai is trying to bring to the people. Okay? It says, "I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. The horse and his rider he has hurled into the sea. The Lord is my strength and song. He has become my salvation. This is my Elohim, and I will praise him. My father's Elohim, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his armies he has casted into the sea, and the choices of his officers drowned into the Red Sea. The deeps covered them. They went down into the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, is majestic in power. Your right hand, O Lord, shatters the enemy. And in the greatness of your excellence, you overthrew those who rise up against you. You sent forth your burning anger, and it consumed them as a shaft. At the blast of your nostrils, the waters were piled up. The flowing of water stood up like a heap. The deeps were congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue and I will overtake, and I will divide the spoil. My desire shall be gratified against them. I will draw out my sword, my hand will destroy them. You blew with your wind, the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you among the gods, O Lord? Adonai. Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in praise, working wonders? You stretched out your hand, the earth swallowed them. Your loving kindness you have led the people whom you have redeemed. In your strength you have guided them to your holy habitation. Now, Adonai is very interesting because we're going to see something in the Sundervan when we look at the point that Adonai made to Pharaoh. It is a point that Adonai is going to make to a future god that the people of Israel will encounter, which is Baal. And Baal was assimilated to an extent in Egypt as well, to an extent. But Baal will be mainly a Canaanite god. And we're going to read this from the Sundervan, and then we're going to finish and close out. Okay? So in the Sundervan, it says the following. There are parallels between the descriptions of Adonai, Yahweh's victory in Exodus 15, and the victory of Baal, recorded in the Ugarit literature, and latter in the terrible and monstrous character C demands the high god El hand Baal over to him as a prisoner. El complies. Later, the craftsman god Kothar fashions two mighty clubs with which Baal defeats the sea. El then grants Baal a palatial residence in Mount Zephon, which is why the people of Israel are in front of Baal Zephon. Okay? In part because he was proved his superiority of divine counsel with his defeat of the sea. In Exodus, Yahweh too shows his mastery over the sea by means of victory won there. Yahweh receives praise as the greatest among the gods. The verse contains a straightforward rhetorical question, with no one as the obvious answer. After the victory, Yahweh and the people he has rescued head for the mountain of God, the place where Moses was told that he and the people will worship Adonai. This may be what is meant by the mountain of your inheritance, the place of the Lord you made for your dwelling. Baal, when he wins over the sea, he then settles on his mountain. Yahweh's victory with the sea is followed by a travel to his, okay? In light of this interesting note, the combination of the two miraculous crossings from Israelites crossing the sea in Exodus and the crossing of Joshua. Baal's victory over the sea is described in this fashion. The sea fell, he sank to the earth, he joints and trembled. His frame collapsed. Baal destroyed, Baal drank sea, he finished of judge a river. So this Ugaritic poem, the judge a river, is common nickname for sea. Any god who claims superiority must surely demonstrate victory over sea and river. This is also evident in the Babylonian creation myth with Alish. Marduk proved his superiority by defeating Tiamat, the watery sea goddess monster. So Yahweh demonstrates his ability to control deftly both sea and river. Maybe reminiscent of this idea, he shows there's complete submission to him. This line of thinking may be also underlined in Psalms 114, verse 3 through 6, which describes the rescue from Egypt. The sea looked and fled. The Jordan turned back. The mountains skipped like rams, the hills like lambs. Why was it, O sea, that you fled, O Jordan, that you turned back, you mountains, that you skipped like rams, you hills like lambs? Thus, Yahweh's triumph over the combination of sea and river will have held important theological implications for the Israelites and function as a significant part of their basis for exalting Yahweh above all other perpetuated deities. So, Adonai made a statement to Egypt, to the people, and he's also making a statement to the future people that the people of Israel are going to encounter. And the main point that Adonai is trying to get through the minds of Israel and through the mind of the world is that he is the creator, right? He is the sole source of creation. That's what we understood in Genesis. And now in Exodus, he's starting to describe to us that he is the sole dictator of history and how the world will function as man constructs their own hierarchical kingdoms, and how men start creating their own methodological ways of doing things. Adonai always confronts man when he starts to oppress his neighbors and when he starts to oppress the stranger. This is what Israel is told. Do not oppress the stranger because you were a stranger too. Do not prevent the Egyptian to come into the people of Israel. Adonai demonstrated that he is just, righteous, and he is the most powerful. That he is the sole provider and the sole creator. And that the only people that survived the judgment of the sea and the judgment of these gods were the people that obeyed him, which was Israel and every Egyptian that fled with them, that decided to leave behind their culture and what they had inherited from their fathers and mothers to follow the truth of Adonai. And now Adonai has become controller of the seas, controller of the chaos. He has brought order. And now he's going to teach them the structure on how to maintain this order. And that's what we have to learn in the next couple of chapters, in the next couple of Torah portions. So we read a lot, a little bit of information here and there. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys take time to read the Torah portion with your parents. I hope you guys have a great week. Shavua Tov and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.